everyone, and welcome to the Forward Miami Show. I'm your host, Damian Pardo, and today we're bringing back a guest we had a few weeks ago, Vanessa Garcia. Welcome to the show.
Hi, good to be back.
Hey, Vanessa, how are you?
Good, really good.
So, listen, a lot has happened since our show, and I was
Wow.
hoping that you could kind of give somewhat of a summary from a very prescient show a few weeks back, several weeks back, to everything that has really happened with Cuba currently, and maybe you could give a summary of where we're at.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think we could not have imagined that Friday, I think it was,
No.
or that the Sunday that followed, we would be where we were. So on July 11th, the people of Cuba took to the streets, which is something. And when I say took to the streets, they took to the streets en masse. We started to get messages over here, that the city of Bauta was on the streets, that another city was on the streets, that then Havana, and it was just like city after city after city that was hitting the streets of Havana under a repressive regime. This is enormous. This is massive because what they know they're doing when that happens is that they're risking their lives, they're risking the lives of their families, and this is, protest with risk of death. So they do that, and doing that send a message of what it is they're actually chanting on the streets, which is libertad, libertad, libertad. They want freedom, they want liberty. And what has come from that is a very clear understanding that what they want is the only way to achieve that freedom and that liberty is for the regime to step down, which they're not doing. What they've done essentially instead is that the president Diaz-Canel went out and gave an order to his people to essentially do anything that they need to do, whether that meant kill them on the streets, to prevent them from protesting and to protect communism and to protect the regime. So essentially, there was an order of democide, which is what that is. And everyone on this side of the Florida Straits has been protesting and crying and chanting alongside the people inside Cuba. So Cuban Americans have really aligned in a way that I don't think we've seen it like this before. There has been a real unity and communion among this community, and there is one goal, which is to amplify the voice of the people inside the island. And so we've had protests, in front of the Freedom Tower across cities around the United States. So just like the cities in Havana were coming in, the cities around the United States were coming in, starting with the big ones like Miami and Union City and New Jersey and the places that have the hubs of Cuban Americans. But they're everywhere, Philadelphia, all over the place.
Madrid.
It's bringing up. That part has been beautiful and always underlying a real consciousness of the fact that the people who are putting their flesh and their blood on the line are the people inside Cuba. But we're listening and we're amplifying.
So, listen, what do you tell the people who really don't follow this issue, who are not Cuban American, and who, they were kind of ready for a discussion about engagement? They were primed already for kind of like an extension of what had started with Obama, and they don't know much anything else. How can you help those folks come along with us?
I think that you have to start listening to what the Cuban people are actually saying, and this is something that gets repeated over and over again. The people were chanting for liberty, not a lifting of the embargo. Anyone who knows anything about the actual embargo, and we've talked about this, that anyone who knows anything about the embargo knows that almost every other country trades with Cuba. It is not an excuse for which to repress your people. It is not an excuse to go out and kill your people. It is not an excuse for the failure of your regime that the United States has placed what is essentially a sanction upon your ill doing and your injustices, your human rights abuses on the island. So what the U.S., what people have been telling Congress, Rosa Maria Paya went to Congress and gave testimony and have been saying is, maybe the United States has not been wrong to sanction them for the abuses that are now being unmasked. Maybe the rest of the world needs to be doing something similar. This is not a moment to lift a sanction or an embargo when actually the thing, everyone can see it. The thing that they are being essentially, sanctioned for is now blatantly out in the open. And we talked about this. It's not like it came out of nowhere. Artists on the island have been working at this towards, since November, that we can see on the internet, but way before. Yeah.
And, and what do you tell the folks that really don't? They're still kind of in that partisan lens of, oh my God, I saw a Trump flag in the news. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. We gotta remove ourselves from this. I was in Washington earlier this week and I heard Debbie Wasserman Schultz, a Democrat, a very prominent Democrat, say for the very first time, say out loud, say, this is not Cuba is not a bipartisan issue. It is a non-partisan issue. If you understand that this is about humans and human rights, this is a nonpartisan issue. So it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you voted for in your last election. It doesn't, great. The fact that we can vote and we can say, I did this, I did that, wonderful. That's why we're here and that's why we have a voice, and that's why we're using it. So this is a nonpartisan issue and that has to be at the front. We cannot be divided in any way. That's what the regime wants us to do. And we can't play into that. We know there are games which are being played, and we just can't fall into those traps. And I think that people are well aware of that. And for the most part, there has been, I see, a unification. We just have to stay in that line.
and what do you say, for example, to the groups that haven't really been, in line in that way, like whether it was the Miami-Dade Progressive Caucus or the Florida Progressive Caucus or BLM, really their statements were kind of off.
Yeah.
What, how can we help those kinds of organizations to get better information or to kind of join the coalition?
I think that the thing that we can do best and most frequently is continue to tell our story. We know our truths. We know the things that we have lived. We know the people who are sending us direct messages from the island and saying, please say this, please spread this. This is what's happening here. There are boinas negras parading down my neighborhood in Pinar del Rio. I can't, meaning like there are, people talking about, here's the repression, I'm looking at it, there's the military is going up and down the streets in Cuba, they're not letting us out. Amplify the messages of the people that you receive messages from and trusted sources, and tell your story. Because the thing is that we do have all these stories. We are, and I've written about this, we are the children of people who have had to flee, and they flee with their flesh and blood, and they gave it to us, and we hold their story. It's our responsibility to share that. The more we share that story clearly, factually, the more it is impossible to negate that truth.
So we hear a lot about, well, what do you want? What do you people want? What do Cuban Americans want? Are we going to invade Cuba? What are we going to do? How do we help address some of that angst over what are we really asking for as a Cuban American community?
Yeah, we are asking for the pressure of the international community against what has been atrocities for 62 years, essentially war crimes. We are asking for immediate things also. The release of political prisoners, pressure from the international community, including the United States, Europe, everyone, to release the political prisoners. It's very easy for a regime to say they've captured hundreds and hundreds of people, and among those people are leaders in the community. So what are they doing? They're saying, okay, put the leaders away, put them all away so that there's not insurrection, and those people need to be released. That's the first thing. The second part is internet. There are ways in which, again, the international community of the United States could spread internet into Cuba. They already have China helping them to censor. So there are ways in which, and Joe Biden has talked about looking into this and in how even the private sector can help in many ways. And so they're looking into that. But that is of utmost importance because they need to have the hope that they are being seen, and also the hope of seeing all of us receiving the messages and what we're doing with them. If not, it just feels like they're shouting, out of a vacuum, and it's just playing back in. And then all they see in front of them are those boinas negras and the military parading down their streets. Those two things are huge. Biden did already say that he is continuing sanctions, and it is just the beginning of what actions might be as the United States and in collaboration with the international community. So those are top of the list right now, I think. But what we all want is what the people want, which is an end to that tyranny.
And do you think the people would welcome any kind of real intervention?
I personally don't think there's going to be any kind of, bloody war intervention that would be too complicated in terms of geopolitics.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to a certain degree, it's sort of what they want. They have a narrative on the island. The regime has set out a narrative that the United States will come in and invade and do whatever. And I'm not sure we should feed into that narrative. That's also very easy to say when you're not the one bleeding on the streets. And so there's that understanding of that there is a real drastic need for help and that SOS. And so I understand why people go there. I don't think that's what's going to happen.
And with emotions running so high, how are you able to help bring that coalition to the same message and the same space? And because I have seen a lot of coalescing, which I think
Mhm.
is great.
Yeah.
There aren't people on the Palmetto anymore. There really aren't people very much talking about intervention. I mean, people seem to be getting the message.
Yeah, I think that it's a matter of not getting tired, you are going to get tired. Work through the tired, take a couple hours, take a nap. I know that sounds silly, but it does feel right now, all of us who are working in this and who are in this, it's so exhausting emotionally, but then to continue the work and continue to do it and continue to do it and keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. That's really all I can say to all of us, because I mean, I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, okay, let's go, but it's exhausting. And I understand that, but we can't get tired. We can't get tired because we are our tired is a tired inside freedom. And they are imagine our fellow brothers and sisters, both literally and figuratively on the island, and what they are going through. So I just continuously see their faces and keep going.
Vanessa, you've seen a lot in the last several days. Of everything that you've seen, what is really pulling your heartstring? What is really just an image you can't get out of your mind?
I'll tell, oh my God. I mean, I there's two things that go like kind of in simultaneous. One is being present, a witness to Rosa Maria's testimony to Congress, seeing democracy in action, seeing the beauty of that discussion, of that I can say this and you can repeat with this, and I can say this and then you can say this, and let me explain why, but let me answer, but let me, that the beauty of that, and then seeing the result of the work that she did there and that others were doing, Marco Rubio, a million other people that we have heard. Um, the result of that in Joe Biden's statement on Cuba just days later, the next day actually, is massive. It's literally seeing democracy in action, and it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing. And you can't help but feel that you want that kind of freedom for your people. And then the other thing, the other moment that's just like I'm never gonna forget this feeling is I was at the protest on Saturday in front of the Freedom Tower, and I was taking pictures. I was close to the stage. I was listening to all the speeches, and then I just took a moment and walked to the side, and I looked out. And I still got emotional actually thinking about this one moment. And I look out, and it's everyone, all the people were they were just chanting and together and looking up at the people who were speaking, and you could really, really, really feel them. And I just felt such a tremendous love for my people, and that the kind of just peace, unity, desire, passion, drive, and need they were all fueled with. And I sat down for a moment, and somebody snapped a picture, so I'll always have a memory of that particular moment. But yeah, those are the two.
Vanessa, what can people do? People who are right now, you are pulling heartstrings. Right now, you are registering with people. They want to help. What can they do?
I think continue to talk to Cubans. One, two, when you understand the things that they're asking for, also ask for them, because we live in a democracy. The American people are heard. It's not just the Cuban Americans, it is the American people. And so one of the things that is most moving to me is I have had a lot of conversations with my friends from LA, from New York, from people who don't understand these things and of course not. I mean, we all have our histories, right? So, but the need and the desire to want to, that is first, because then you can begin to understand, okay, what's the story, where does it come from? And it's taken us all our lives to really know it, obviously, like the way that we know it, but we can disseminate that information and we can get that to them. And then once I think you really understand, or the pieces that you really understand, then go ahead and amplify that, because again, your voice is heard as an American in this country.
And what about for the people that want to volunteer and they want to give money? And you hear a lot about data plans and
Yeah.
subsidizing data plans in Cuba. I mean,
Yep.
what are good ways for them to, pragmatically contribute and volunteer?
Yes. So one of the ways, I mean, we're working with a couple of people that are doing that directly. So if you DM us at in Instagram at Abre Camino Collective, we work with a couple of people that we know personally, who also have family personally in Cuba. I mean, this is the kind of thing you have to do, because the risk is dealing with the regime. You can't do that. They'll take the money. So what we're doing is we're sending money directly to people so that they can recharge their data plans and then hop onto an app that will allow them to connect to the internet. It's a circuitous thing that we're sort of aiding with because it's necessary. But there are a bunch of organizations that are doing that. You just have to make sure that they're clean and clear and crisp. I can tell you definitely we're doing it, and we're working with with a few people. Like actual people doing it.
So I
So
want to say Abre Camino Collective is B as in boy, RECAM like Manny, N like Nancy, O Collective. Abre Camino Collective. And if they want to volunteer, could they email someone? Where should
sure.
they?
You can email us and we'll send a list of places. We're sort of just acting as a hub for, what it is that you want to do. Okay, there's also here are the websites that I'm looking at. ADN Cuba, and also
ADN Cuba,
ADN
ADN.
Cuba. There is Cuba Decide. There is, you can look at the actual Movimiento San Isidro. You can look at Michael Osorbo, who's in prison, and also Luis Manuel Alcántara, who's in prison, maximum security, but they are being run by trusted sources. And so these are places that you can look to. Diario de Cuba. These are places that you can look to for actual facts of what's happening. And Cuba Decide and organizations like that can also give you talking points, how-to points, where to volunteer points. Like there's a letter that you can send to senators, all written out for you. If you agree with it, you can just use it as a template. There's a list of our Congress members that you can reach out to, and so there's a bunch of action points that if you follow those trusted sites, you can get to really easily.
And Vanessa, what seems to be working right now? What seems to be going well in these moments? Who's helping? Who's helping us?
All of everything that I just said are the people that are helping, and also social media started this thing to a certain degree. Social media will continue this thing, and we have to continue to speak there, because it is the fire, that
Yeah.
continues, and that's
And
why.
I know I've been really happy to see, Manny Diaz, the head of the Florida Democratic Party, and Marco Rubio, and so many people on all sides
Yeah.
finally really understanding, this issue. And really the issue is about the Cuban people, their pain, their suffering, and enough is enough in 62 plus years of this, draconian regime.
Yeah. I think when one person stands up, it gives the courage for two, and two give the courage for three and four and five and six. And I was in front of the White House the other day, and there are people there that are standing there protesting. And one of the men, he said, I defected in Russia. This guy has come
Wow.
recently, right? Because that's one of the places that you are allowed to go or you're sent to, right? And he said, I defected in Russia. But I went with a group of people, and everyone wants to defect. No one wants to go back. But we were all afraid. And I said, I'm going to do this. They all said, I'm crazy. You're crazy. No, let's just go back. There's too much at risk. There's too much. And he said, there was one woman who said, I'll do it with you. I will stay with you. And he said, okay, here we come. And he literally said, he said, okay, here we come. I'm running to you, liberty. And so the that one person that said, I want to do this, and then everybody else said, oh, that's so scary, and then it just took that one other voice for him to say, no, okay, we'll do it together. That means everything. And I think that's the driving force behind all of this, and that's why we can't stop, because where there's one tired, another one will say, no, not yet, come on, it's not that far. So I think that's key here.
And obviously, the key here is to hope that one day, very soon, there is
Yeah.
a free Cuba where people can speak and they can vote and they can express whether it's art or opinions, and create business and become an industrious force, which we know that community is capable of.
Yes, that
So,
community is capable of so much. Yes, yes, yes.
is there anything this weekend that people can participate in that you know of?
Yes, there's a vigil. There's a vigil, I think, on, well, there's a huge Cuban anniversary coming up of the sort of the beginnings of the revolution, which is 26 de Julio. So around that day, we're also doing things for the counter revolution that has, sprouted.
Can you explain what 26th of July means
Yes,
in Cuba?
El 26 de Julio essentially is like the first moment in which Fidel tried to take over and failed, but it is considered the beginning of the revolution in that way, right? Um, and so it's an attempt to take back the date and to say, there's a new date in history, and it's the 11th of July when the people took to the streets and said it's time for the tyranny to end, but there are vigils. I have to look at the exact dates. There's a lot of things. There's something tonight, and there's a lot of vigils for those who have passed, because we have been raising our voices in protest, but also people have died, and so there are moments of silence and moments of vigil, and there are a few of those coming up this weekend, today and this weekend, most definitely. I can send dates. I don't have them right now on my phone, but they continuously come. I know that I'm doing something every day.
Vanessa, you're such an inspiration. Let me ask you, what words can you give to those people that are just really running low on their batteries?
I was thinking about this today, and I was like, I kept thinking about how we've been called gusanos, and we're proud to be gusanos in a way.
Worms in English, yeah.
Which is what the Castro regime called people that were leaving Cuba, or the undesirables, or everybody who's on this side. I'm a gusana, you're a gusano, we're all
Yeah,
gusanos,
absolutely.
right? Yeah,
I'm
and
a big
proud,
one.
yeah. And I keep thinking, like maybe we're gusanos after all. We've been these caterpillars, and we're almost butterflies, like it's almost there, and we can't give up.
That's a great message. We really can't give up.
No.
I mean, that's the one thing you hear over and over, whether it's Enrique Santos or Los PG Boys, or, whoever's out there in social media, everybody's reposting and trying, because it's so important. I mean, there's a rally in Madrid, there's a
Yeah.
rally, several European cities. So it really is, as you said at the beginning, it's really heartwarming to
Yeah.
see that even though it took 62 years, and there are Cuban Americans spread out all across the world, we're finally in a place where there's a really good shot that a message can make it, and that if the Cuban people can't say it, we're all out there saying it on their behalf and amplifying it and caring
Correct.
and loving them. So that's really, really wonderful. Any closing words, Vanessa?
I'm just looking. I want to look for this. It's today. There's a vigil, I believe, today at 8 p.m. 7:30. Marchamos a las 8 reunion, and it starts at Marine Corps in Curtis Parkway and Deer Run. Okay, so there's one march today at 7:30 at that time. Yeah, I just want to give one of them because I know they come in, but there's one.
Any
Anyway.
closing thoughts on these weeks, or aspirations for the coming weeks that you want to share with the viewers?
Yeah. I think that we have to continue in the way of peace and love and just absolute mission and drive. That feeling that was there that day, that was so moving. I think we have to stay in that spirit. Don't get divided. The longer you fight, the more we get tired, and the more you can sort of like, find small things to be contentious about. Just don't let it happen. Don't let it happen. Don't let it happen.
And the hashtags are SOS Cuba for obvious reasons.
Yep.
And Patria y Vida. Do you want to
Patria
explain
Vida.
that just for a second? Why Patria y Vida, where that comes
Yes.
from?
Motherland and life, instead of, it's a play on words of patria o muerte, motherland or death, which was a chant of the revolution. And so
Yeah.
it comes from a song that was created earlier this year, and that went out. Yotuel, Gente de Zona, and Michael, who's in prison. All of these people made this song, and it has lit a fire. I think it works vertically inside of us and really, really moves us. It says "Se acabó," which is another hashtag.
Which is another hashtag, which means it's over.
Over.
So listen, thank you. Please keep at it. I don't know where you get the energy, but God bless. Keep doing every single thing you're doing, and the more people that join, the better it is for this community and for the Cubans in Cuba, especially
Absolutely.
for the Cubans in Cuba. Thank
Yeah.
you again, Vanessa. Really
Thank
appreciate
you.
your time.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Bye.
And to everyone out there, thank you very much for